Here we are again.
Hello.
Say it again so they can hear you.
Hello.
All right, that was Bonnie. I'm Lance, and we're doing our award-winning radio show. All right. So how was your day today?
Completely unproductive.
Really? It's been a rough week on me, so I'm wanting to get as much done this weekend as possible. Started a new painting, working on some drawings. I posted a song earlier this week, and I'm not going to write another song for a long time.
Why is that?
It's just exhausting. I had this thing. I wrote it, and then I wanted to do a decent recording of it. So you got to try, and it's a pain in the butt. The longer the song sits without doing the final version, it's like something weighing on you. So here we are sitting in our living room, which I've told you this before, and from this vantage point, there's so many cool things to look at. Bonnie introduced this video to me today. What was the guy's name?
For the life of me, I can't remember.
Jim Eads? Was that it?
Something like that. He had a home at Cambridge and is now turned into a museum for Cambridge University. And it's 3 cottages plus a new addition that was put in the 70s. And they have just some fabulous art. And the best part of it is, it's not like some formal museum gallery where you walk from room to room and these things are all behind glass and there's a tape on the wall, on the floor. You can't step at a certain distance. No, this is a home setting, and it's very much homey. It's
Well,
accessible art.
to me, it shows one of the advantages of minor artists, because when you get the big name art, they have to display it like it's a treasured object, and
It is behind closed doors, and you do have to ring and be entered in. But the interesting thing I thought was they loan out art to students of all things at Cambridge University.
yeah, but I like a lot of the big name artists, but over the years, as I've gotten to be more of a painter myself, more accomplished, there's really something to be said for a lot of minor artists. And there's nothing wrong with aspiring to be the best artist you can, but then somehow you get relegated to that status. It's all just. But anyway, I really liked a lot of the pieces, a lot of sculpture, and a lot of prints, a lot of stuff by the same guy. I can't remember the name.
Wallace, was it?
Might have been.
And, I forget the other one now. But, I look around our house and I see a lot of art that we've created ourselves and family members have created. And then we have the odd pictures of the odds and ends of minor artists I found. A lot of prints. We love prints. That is to say engravings, etc. So that you're looking at something being inked, rubbed in some way, etched. We've also got a lot of landscapes, which is one of my personal favorites. I love landscapes. And we have a lot of what I would call tourist art. Pictures from all over Europe of places. We've got, I don't know how many things from Germany from when we lived there. We've got things from Italy. And the Italian ones are interesting because there are sets of prints that you buy and they're numbered. And you would buy a portfolio back in the 60s and the 70s and such. And you could take them home and switch out the art. We have plates on our walls. I love decorative plates. We also have historical things in here. We have sculptures that are original or reproductions that are anything from the earliest periods around Canaanite goddesses,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know what you mean.
and
Yeah.
we've got art from the Americas, sculptures, and then we have beads that are made of stones. We have an Uzbek horse in here. We have Peruvian pottery. We have I forget where this,
Well,
a Mayan tapestry here on the sofa itself, too.
Inca. This is Inca.
This is Incan.
Yeah.
And then we've got a Mayan codex painting here.
Well, you know, two things. I wish we had some examples of really well done calligraphy, like with the big brush, you know. And second, a long time ago when Peter was little, didn't John and Lesha give him one of these fossils that's like the remains of creatures moving?
It wasn't a fossil in the ancient sense. It's a modern fossil. Things can be imprinted within mud in rivers very easily as things break down and erode, and he has a section of a riverbank that they just pulled out that was made in the last decade or so, or several decades now, of impressions that were left in the clay, and then it dried.
Does he still have it?
Yeah, it's in his room.
In the geology, what used to be called the geography speech building, there near the central staircase was this huge fossil that was nothing but that. It was just traces of like trilobite footprints and movement. It was huge.
My granddad would go down to the Flint River here in Georgia and dig away at the different sedimentation layers. And he collected a number of fossils,
Really?
rocks, etc. He had a container filled with prehistoric shark teeth.
Where's the Flint River?
The Flint River runs through middle down to South Georgia.
Huh.
And, of course, he himself was a rock hound, self-professed. And they would take trips, and they would go out geode hunting or fossil collecting, that sort of thing.
Huh. It seems like I used to have a bunch of shark's teeth from when I was a kid.
You did? Peter now has that collection. It's in a small jam jar, and they're tiny black
Because my mother,
fossilized ones.
when we went to Myrtle Beach when I was a kid, what? Oh, when I was a kid, we went to Myrtle Beach, and my parents had lived there together before I was born. And my mother had all these shark's teeth that she had collected from, and that was one of her favorite things to do, was walk on the beach and pick up shells and shark's teeth and stuff. And so she taught me about that. And this was the summer before 6th grade, I think. Or anyway, and
I collect shells myself.
Yeah. Well, I was shocked at how easy it was to find shark's teeth, just laying out. All you just keep your eyes open and keep looking.
Yeah.
I'll have to find one of those really big ones, like from a megalodon. You know. Speaking of which, you just watched the Meg 2, didn't you?
Yeah, it wasn't as enjoyable as the first one. Normally, I don't go for modern theatrical releases. As a matter of fact, we turned down free tickets from my cousin, who's a bigwig in media and all that. And so I watched Meg 1 and then turned around and ended up buying access to Meg 2 because I enjoyed the first one so much. And Meg 2 was just terrible. It's just cheesy as hell. I mean, neither one of them are great, but like my dad calls them big dumb summer movies.
Yeah, I remember watching Deep Blue Sea a long time ago, and it was good
another
for what
big
it
dumb
was.
Big dumb summer movie.
Well, I'm trying to think. I don't want to talk about any depressing shit like work or any of that shit.
No, let's not.
It's bad enough that when you get home and try to go to sleep, you're imagining you're working male. It's horrible. I remember years ago when I would have been 17. I had a job at a shoe store at the mall, and one of the big things they wanted me to do was I can't remember what they called it, but basically you go back in the back and you straighten the stock, and you have to make sure the shoes are in the right order, and you're looking at the labels on the boxes, and you have to straighten everything up. And I did this and did this and did this and did this. And I went home and went to sleep that night, and I dreamed I was still doing it. It was like being an automaton, sorting boxes. It was horrible.
Those 2 long periods where I was driving you to work 250 miles a night, I would get home, and when I could sleep, sometimes I would dream about driving that 5-hour commute. It was horrible.
This week in particular, coming home has been just a labor. You're like, okay, this curve, this house, every business, every billboard sign, everything, every rut in the road, you know it, and you're just like, okay, now this pothole here.
Yeah, I remember there were nights going to get you or coming back that I would have to roll down the windows, turn the air conditioning on full blast, and it was winter time, just trying to stay awake because the caffeine didn't help, food didn't help. The traffic patterns were so bad that I would get home from dropping you off and I would be so agitated that I couldn't sleep. Or if I did sleep, it would be for an hour, or 2 hours, or 3 hours. There were nights I drove there to get you from work, having not slept at all in between. It was horrible.
It is. It's ridiculous, and they're just jerking me around about when I'm going to go back to Athens. And
Wait a minute, we're talking about work when I was supposed
oh,
to
that's right. That's right. What are we doing? What are we doing?
Don't do that.
That's right. Oh goodness.
So this week we had some bad news in the form of a report about Biden's classified materials. And he sounds like some doddering old fool. But I'd like to remind you that when Trump was first in office and he was trying to negotiate to meet the president of North Korea, they leaked out the fact that the president of North Korea thought that Trump himself was a doddering old fool. So even back then, Trump was already fucked up in the head. So we may have to choose between a doddering old fool or a doddering old fool who is sadistic, malicious, malevolent bastard in the form of Trump.
Yeah, as bad as Biden is, and as disappointing as he is, he's clearly the better choice.
Yeah, he's not fucking evil. I've never seen anything as bad as Trump is in living history. He is truly an evil egomaniac.
Well, I see something we ought to do tomorrow. Would you be interested in going to the Georgia Museum of Art?
Probably not.
Because, every once in a while, once a year we'll go and there'll be a great exhibit and you're like, oh, wow. And then you go back 5 times and it's crap.
Yeah. There have been 2 or 3 really good exhibits. One was the one with the Japanese armor. That was fabulous.
Yeah.
One was with all the prints from England or others. And then one was the combined one where they brought in selections from around the world.
Well, the last time we went, I believe, it was when we had this great printmaking exhibition, and I wrote down all these names, and I still have them on my favorites on my
It was
thing.
phenomenal.
Yeah, there's so many cool things. And then back when a long time ago, I think what you're talking about is that it was all American artists because they had.
The global one was not.
Well, anyway, there was one where they had like Thomas Hart Benton and they had Maxwell Parrish, I believe, or Fairfield Porter. I always get those two mixed up. And they had all these people, and I went up there like 3 times, and I told my dad or Mitch, one of the two, enjoy this because this is one of the best traveling exhibits you'll ever see of this type of material. It was unbelievable.
Our museum, the Georgia Museum of Art, has the same problem that a lot of museums have. They have rooms that are dedicated because they have designated donor rooms
Right.
and they have gifted collections. And these things don't rotate out.
They also
And
don't
they take
belong
out-
there.
Well, I agree. I agree in so many ways. I do like variety in museums. I like seeing a lot of different things. But I'm tired of seeing the same old, same old, same old.
When I go to a place like the Georgia Museum of Art, I want to see real art. I don't want to see folk furniture. They have a whole room that's nothing but this chair is 300 years old.
Yeah.
I don't give a shit.
They also have all the collected works of the Dresden pottery and the Limoges ware and stuff. This high-end porcelain that is gilded and hand-painted, and it's the same thing behind glass every single time you walk down the main hall.
I
Go
can
back to the back galleries.
I can see going to, like, say, the Guggenheim or the Museum of Modern Art in New York, and they have the same thing every time to a degree because that's what you've come here for. I've come to see Picasso. I've come to see Matisse. But in a rinky-dink little local university museum of art, they shouldn't have the same shit all the
What gets
time.
me though is they have all this stuff in stores, in their stores, and they also have an excellent community of local artists. They don't focus on having local artists rotate in and out. They expect the smaller galleries to do that. And they also have a tendency to just let that stuff sit in storage. And it doesn't see the light of day. That's sad. You own it. Rotate it out.
You know, they must own. For those of you who don't know, basically the University of Georgia art program was started by Lamar Dodd, who was, you know,
A
B.
regionalist.
Yeah, well, you know, out of in the history of art, he's probably a B rank, you know, second tier, but he was very influential. His work reflected that mid-century style. Anyway, that museum must own a bunch of his stuff. Why don't they have a big exhibit of his stuff?
I don't know. What's interesting is I believe they may have one of his at the Madison County Library.
I think
Which
so,
has kind
maybe.
of surprised me because I would have thought the thing would have been behind glass and alarmed.
Well, I haven't been in there in 25 years, but at Old College, when you walked in, there was like a hallway, and they had like a sideboard or something up against the wall, and over the top of it was, I believe, one of his works, and it was really fantastic. And I don't know if they've gotten rid of it or not.
One thing that I think that the university, the Georgia Museum of Art should do is sponsor a university walk or a university stroll or bus tour where they hand out a brochure that lists all the art available in the different buildings on campus.
idea.
Because you can take the buses all around campus and get off at strategic locations, and you can go and visit the education department, which has extensive collections of children's art.
That's right.
It has you can also go to the law library and other main buildings that have art that is in the form of murals from the
Yes.
public works projects from the Depression era.
The journalism
And some
building.
of these are enormous murals. And it's really kind of funny. They're actually some of them are socialist in theme. Because the artists who did them reflected their own personal values. So you have a lot of workers' rights, pro-union sort of imagery. But they also have art in obscure little places. Is it the McFall Center? the children's area of the McFall Center. They have some 1970s art over there. The
Are you talking
libraries
about?
have art on display in their entrances. They always set up
Yeah.
things. But
Well, if it's the building I'm thinking of, there's those 4 little home ec cottages that they built,
yes,
and kind of
and then
catty
there's a
corner.
children's
Right, it's like for
thing. I think it's called
developmental something for
Yeah.
yeah. But I used to pick up or deliver special deliveries over there once in a while, and you walked in, and to the right there was a steep staircase down into the basement, and at the bottom of the stairs on the wall was a beautiful piece of like mid-century abstracted like dots of flowers or something, and I just wonder if that painting's still there or not.
But we also have, of course, football art, murals, things like that. We have statuary of famous people who have been there. We have sculptures around campus. We have water fountains. We have hedge gardens that are registered. We have, I think it is the oldest garden club in America.
That's right.
And in that, you have not just the hedge gardens, but you have statuary in those. Peter, when he was over at physics area, discovered this whole little area where there was a sculpture and a water feature and a small garden. So you could have not just the art tour, you could do the gardens tour over there. You could do the football and sports tour because there are numerous trophy areas. You've got, of course, Buttsmere Heritage Hall, but in addition to that, you have like the murals. I think they at one point had large murals at the Coliseum, and of course overlooking the hedges.
They've
which are
ruined
now-
that Coliseum.
Oh, the glass facade's horrible.
Let me ask you a question.
And then there is, of course, the architectural tour.
Yeah.
The University of Georgia has things going back to, what is it, the 1730s, the buildings? Like you mentioned, Old College.
1787.
I thought that they started earlier.
That's when the university was founded, and I think the oldest building, Old College, is like from that year or the year after.
They found the Indian
Right, the arrowhead attack.
eras from being attacked by the Indians in the area. And so we've got all these things from hundreds of years, basically 300 years of architecture on our campus. And then there's the Arboretum tour. It's a registered arboretum.
Mm-hmm.
And so the landscaping is something they spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on every year.
Well, let me ask you a question. Now, okay, because of my poor high school record, I struggled at UGA, and I didn't have a very successful college career. But our kids both graduated from with honors, and I want to ask, how much math did they have to do? Because that was always
much. They were not math majors. They were not science majors. Therefore, it takes you down to less than a year's worth. They may have had 3 classes total. And then they had what were called crossover classes. Like they were able to take some science classes that qualified with under the math designation. I think they both took a science history class that, due to the understanding of the age of the universe and the dimensions and such, that somehow or another it got classified and ticked a box with their math.
because math was always my weak point, and I just struggled every class I took in college with math or the science. I didn't have a problem with really. I had a biology class. We made really revolting cheese with rennet and milk. It was nasty. Yeah, well,
Peter didn't have, but I think one science class because he had had so many advanced AP classes in high school, and he was the AP scholar for his school. And then he did all the exemptions with those. He exempted out of most of his Spanish classes. he only had to do a Spanish class that was dialogue when he got to UGA, because he went through all the honors programs and AP stuff with Spanish at high school, and then he took exemption courses at UGA. He went and took testing and exempted out of basically just about everything except for that one class where he had dialogue. He said the worst part was actually coming up with a conversation that was interesting enough to present.
There was some room off of what, well, I don't know how much they've changed, but the Tate Center used to be this student rec center. Anyways,
It's changed.
yeah, well, there was a room connected to that where they had all these computer terminals set up, and I had to take algebra, like remedial algebra tests,
Oh, did
and I
Tony?
just bombed them all the time.
Was your tutor Tony Eubanks?
I didn't have a Tony. I didn't have a tutor.
He didn't
My
teach-
girlfriend at the time was trying to help me
Sorry,
through.
I didn't mean tutor. Your instructor.
No, I have no idea. Mitch had
He was a friend of mine from back then, and one of his jobs was to get all the kids through remedial English and to get the football players qualified.
well, Mitch had nighttime classes at UGA at one time, and
Oh yeah.
the
they
guy who
have
was
night
the
classes.
the guy who was his math teacher was like Asian or something with this horrible thick accent.
Yeah,
And
I had one of
I
those
went
too.
to class with him one night because he wanted me to see just how bad the
It's
guy's
horrible.
accent was. And he said it took him weeks to figure out some word he was saying was numerator.
I may have actually had that guy too.
And it was like,
was-
no.
He was terrible. He was from South Korea, and his language skills left a lot to be desired.
All right, we have gone over time limit. We need to start doing hour-long shows.
Oh shit.
Do one every day like Ricky and Elliot.
No, I don't think so.
We'd never get it uploaded with our connection. All right, well, I'm going to go make this video and post it right now.
Hey, is Valentine's Day coming up this week?
It's coming up on Wednesday.
Ooh, I love you. Happy Valentine's
I love you
Day.
too. Happy Valentine's Day.
Bye.
Bye-bye. See you, everybody. Oh.